Every single one of these cars claimed to make 276 horsepower. The Skyline GTR, the Supra, the RX-7, the Lancer Evo, the WRX STI, all of them. Same number, 276. That's not a coincidence, that's a conspiracy. In 1989, the Japanese auto industry sat down Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Mazda, Mitsubishi, Subaru, and made a gentleman's agreement. No production car sold in Japan would exceed 276 horsepower. They shook hands, nobody signed anything, and then almost every single one of them went back to their engineering departments and quietly built cars that made way more than that. There was no law, no penalty, no inspector with a dynamometer. It was an honor system among car companies in the middle of one of the greatest performance arms races automotive history has ever seen. This is the story of 9 cars that said one thing on paper and did something completely different on the road, and the one company that actually told the truth and paid dearly for it. Number 9, Nissan 300ZX. Let's start with one that doesn't get enough credit for how brazenly it lied. The Nissan 300ZX twin turbo. In Japan, 276 horsepower. In the United States, the same car, same engine, same turbos, same everything, 300 horsepower. Nissan didn't tune it differently for export. They didn't install bigger turbos for the American market. They just told the truth to Americans and lied to their own country. The 300ZX was already a problem for the agreement from day one. It was a twin turbocharged V6 that could embarrass Porsches at the track. Road and Track ran a comparison test in the early 90s, and the 300ZX kept up with and in some cases beat cars that cost twice as much from Europe. And the official spec sheet was claiming the same horsepower as a family sedan. Car journalists who drove both versions back to back kept writing the same thing. These feel like the same car because they were the twin turbocharged VG30 Det engine made the same power in Tokyo as it did in Los Angeles. Nissan just filed different paperwork depending on which side of the Pacific you were on. No tuning differences, no regional adjustments, no explanation. They printed a different number for a different audience and moved on like nothing happened. It's a bold strategy, it worked perfectly, and the 300ZX remains one of the most underappreciated sports cars Japan ever built, partly because nobody at home was allowed to know what it really was. Number 8, Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. Mitsubishi went even further. The 3000 GT VR 4 inches Japan, the GTO twin turbo officially produced 276 horsepower in America. From 1994 onward, Mitsubishi listed the same car at 320 horsepower. That's a 44 horsepower difference for a car that crossed the Pacific without a single mechanical change. Same twin turbo V6, same all-wheel drive system, same active aerodynamics, which by the way was a car that automatically adjusted its front and rear wings at speed in 1990, a party trick most supercars couldn't match at the time. The 3000 GT VR4 was genuinely one of the most technologically complex cars on the planet when it launched. Four-wheel steering, active exhaust, all-wheel drive. And Japan's official position was, this makes 276 horsepower, the same as a mid-range Nissan. Mitsubishi just wrote a different number for Americans and called it a day. The irony is that the 3000 GT is one of the most underrated cars of its era, partly because nobody in Japan was allowed to know how fast it actually was. So far, we've seen 2 companies that just wrote a different number for export markets. Brazen, effective, but the cars we haven't gotten to yet, they didn't even bother exporting a different figure. They lied to everybody and somehow nobody stopped them. Number 7, Subaru Impreza WRX STI. The math on this one never worked, and everyone knew it. The Subaru WRX STI officially produced 276 horsepower. It was also winning or nearly winning World Rally Championship events against purpose-built race machinery. It was running the same 0 to 60 times as cars with significantly more power on paper. Enthusiasts who put early STIs on dynos started getting numbers in the 295 to 305 range. Stock, no modifications. The engine, the EJ20, was already overbuilt for 276. You could feel it in the power band. The thing pulled like it had more than the sticker said, because it did. Subaru's own tuning division, STI, eventually broke ranks officially. The 2000 Impreza S 201, built by STI, not Subaru proper, was rated at 296 horsepower. A small technical loophole. The agreement covered manufacturer-branded cars. Tuning arms were a gray area. STI used that gray area the way a rally driver uses a ditch aggressively and without apology. The standard WRX STI kept saying 276 until the agreement died. The dyno always disagreed. Number 6, Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. The Lancer Evolution story might be the most obvious lie in the entire agreement. Every generation of the Evo, from the 1st to the 8th, was rated at exactly 276 horsepower. First generation, 276. Third generation, 276. Sixth generation, 276. Tommy Makinen Edition, the special edition Evo, built to celebrate 4 consecutive WRC Drivers' Championships, still 276. A car that won the World Rally Championship 4 times in a row against professional factory rally teams with unlimited budgets, officially making the same power as the base version that came out years earlier. The forum consensus at the time, and later confirmed by independent dyno testing, was that the Evo 6 was making somewhere between 300 and 320 horsepower, depending on the variant. The Tommy Makinen Edition, with its titanium turbo, revised breathing, and Brembo brakes, was producing numbers that made 276 look like a misprint from a different car entirely. The performance was obvious. The timesheets were public. The rally results were broadcast on television across Europe every other weekend. Mitsubishi just kept writing 276. 4 world titles, 1 number, 0 shame. The Tommy Makinen Edition is now one of the most collectible Evos ever produced. And every single one of those cars, per official documentation, made the same power as an entry-level sports car from the same decade. Nobody believes it. Nobody ever did. Number 5, Toyota Supra A80. Toyota's lie was the most polite and also somehow the most infuriating. The A80 Supra twin turbo for the Japanese market, 276 horsepower. For the American and European markets, 320 horsepower. Toyota, like Nissan and Mitsubishi, simply printed a different number outside Japan and didn't change a single bolt. But the A80's real story is what happened afterward. Because the 2JZ GTE engine, the twin turbocharged straight 6 under the hood, was so overbuilt, so massively over-engineered for its official output, that it became the most tuned engine in the history of the sport. Stock internals, stock block, 1,000 horsepower. People were getting there with supporting modifications and a tune, while the bottom end of the engine shrugged and asked for more. Toyota built an engine that was so far beyond what the agreement allowed that they couldn't even use it as a sales argument in their own country. They had to wait for Americans to buy it before the truth could come out on a spec sheet. The 2JZ didn't become a legend because of a number on a brochure. It became a legend because eventually, on dynos from California to Germany, the truth caught up with the lie. The cars we've covered so far mostly lied by being conservative. They made more than they claimed. But the next few cars get stranger. because some of them were lying in ways that had nothing to do with a number on a page. And one car on this list suffered the most because it was the only one that refused to lie at all. Number 4, Mazda RX-7 Spirit R. The RX-7 situation is a little different from everything else on this list because the rotary engine, measuring the same way as a piston engine, was already its own kind of fiction. A 3-liter engine producing 276 horsepower sounds physically impossible, and in conventional terms, it is the rotary displaced less than half what the Supra's engine did. Mazda achieved that number through a sequential twin-turbo setup that generated enormous pressure for an engine its size. But independent testing on Spirit R examples, the final, most extreme version, showed output significantly above the official figure. Some sources put it closer to 295. The Spirit R was also the lightest, stiffest, most driver-focused version of the car, which amplified how much power it felt like it was making. What made the RX-7 different wasn't just the lie on the spec sheet. It was that Mazda was already stretching physics to get there and then lied about stretching physics further. The engineers were doing 2 levels of impossible simultaneously and reporting one number for both. The Spirit R was the last RX-7 ever made Mazda's farewell edition, built in 3 trim levels, each one officially producing exactly 276 horsepower. For a car already defying conventional engine logic just to exist, the number felt like a joke Mazda was telling itself. The Spirit R Type A weighed under 2,800 pounds and ran 0-60 inches under 5 seconds on 276 horsepower in a 1.3-liter engine. If you believe that, there's a bridge in Hiroshima I'd like to sell you. Japan said 276. The dyno, the stopwatch, and the auction house all disagree. Number 3, Nissan Skyline GT-R R32. The R32 is where the agreement starts to look genuinely absurd, and the numbers make it hard to argue otherwise. When the R32 GT-R launched in 1989, it was rated at 276 horsepower. When the R33 replaced it in 1995 with a new chassis, new suspension geometry, a revised gearbox, a new all-wheel drive system, and updated engine internals, it was also rated at 276 horsepower. When the R34 arrived in 1998, yet another generation of mechanical development, knew everything, 276 horsepower. 3 completely different cars, 3 generations of engineering progress, one number. Doug DeMuro famously dynoed a stock, low-mileage R32 and got 320 horsepower at the crank. Independent data from multiple sources puts the R34 GT-R somewhere between 330 and 350 horsepower in factory trim. The claimed figure was off by somewhere between 15 and 27%. The R32 also earned a nickname in Australia, where it competed in touring car racing and proceeded to destroy everything it entered against. Local media called it Godzilla, not because it made 276 horsepower, because it absolutely did not make 276 horsepower. Nissan understood that the number was a public performance, not a specification. They played the role, shook the right hands, printed the right brochure, and then sent Godzilla to Australia to eat Holdens. Number 2, Nismo 400R. This one is less of a lie and more of a middle finger printed in official documentation. In the mid-90s, Nissan's performance division built a limited run of R33 Skyline GT-Rs for the street. The car was called the 400R. The name was not a coincidence. It referred to 400 horsepower. The gentleman's agreement said production cars couldn't exceed 276. Nismo, like STI with the S201, operated in a technical gray zone, a tuning division selling directly to customers, not a manufacturer's production line. They exploited that gap completely. The 400R had a full engine rebuild, upgraded turbos, a Nismo suspension kit, and body modifications. It was road legal, it was registered, it said 400 horsepower on its documentation. Only 44 were ever built. Nismo couldn't build them fast enough. One sold at auction in recent years for well over $1 million. Nissan's official production division said 276. Nissan's own performance arm said 400. Both were technically accurate, only one of them was honest. Number 1, Honda NSX. And here we arrive at the most painful story in this entire video. The Honda NSX was a genuine marvel. Mid-engine layout, aluminum chassis, the first production car in the world to use one, forged pistons, titanium connecting rods, suspension geometry tuned with direct input from Ayrton Senna, who drove early prototypes and gave Honda engineers detailed feedback on what it needed to do at the limit. It was, by almost any objective measure, the most technically sophisticated car Honda had ever built. And Honda did something none of the other manufacturers on this list were willing to do. They told the truth. The original NSX launched with a naturally aspirated V6 producing 270 horsepower, not 276, not a number politely borrowed from the ceiling, just this is what it makes. And for a decade, while Nissan Skylines were quietly producing 320 horsepower and the Supra's 2JZ was secretly bulletproof to 1,000, the NSX sat at its honest number. When rivals got upgrades and kept writing 276, Honda's engineers were constrained by their own integrity. The 1997 update brought a revised engine to 290 horsepower, technically breaking the agreement's ceiling, but only because Honda had nowhere left to hide. The NSX was slower than cars it should have beaten because Honda refused to lie. There's a version of this story where that's admirable. There's another version where it's a competitive disaster caused by one company failing to understand that everyone else had silently agreed to cheat. The NSX is now a legend not because of what the spec sheet said, but because of what it was. And the irony is that the only car on this list that told the truth is also the one people remember most fondly for its honesty. There's one detail that ties all of this together. In Gran Turismo, the PlayStation racing game that introduced an entire generation of Americans to JDM cars, every one of these cars is listed at 276 horsepower. The Skyline GTR, the Supra, the RX-7, the Evo, the STI. Millions of people learned these cars by playing that game, and the number they memorized, 276, was fiction. It was a polite lie that got encoded into a video game and shipped to living rooms around the world. There's something almost perfect about that. Japan built cars too fast to accurately describe, agreed to understate them collectively, and accidentally created a mythology that made every one of them more legendary than the truth could have. The cars were incredible. The number was always a lie. And it didn't matter at all.